Hello and welcome to highlights of the 20th edition of the Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. For many cycling purists, the season starts here in the Riders. With the team presentation at Kuipke, the home of the Ghent 6-day, a big day awaits. 8 climbs and 7 sections of cobblestones, taking in some of the most iconic climbs in world cycling. The Paderstraat, the first section of cobblestones, coming after 33.1 kilometres. And then we got into the climbs with 56.2 to go, the Adalabrug, then the Wolvenberg, where things really start to kick off. And then we get into the back end of the race with the Muur, Kapelmuur, and the final climb of the Bosberg coming with 11.8 kilometres to go. The flag dropped. Some of the big name riders in the race today: Demi Vollering, Pok Pedersen, Lorena Wiebes, Marlon Reusser, all going into the day as the hot favourites. But an early breakaway group would get clear, containing Eleanor Peroni, Lotte Klaas, Arella Nurlo, Julie Stotman and Mika Dox. Julie Stotman dropped just on the climb before 38 kilometres to go. That left 4 riders in the front. The gap with 38 kilometres to go was just under 11 minutes, but it had gone out at times to 14 minutes. Behind, it was the team of Demi Vollering and FDJ Suez that were trying to organise the chase, but the big question was, had they left it too late? Through Gerardsbergen and on to the iconic Muur, Kapelmuur, Eleanor Peroni and Arella Nurlo going clear. Mika Dox and Eleanor Peroni unfortunately distanced from the breakaway group. This would leave us 2 riders in the front, the Belgian in the red of Arkea B&B Hotels, Lotte Klaas, and the Polish rider in the white of Windspace Orange Seal. Behind, Juliette Labousse was doing a great job trying to deliver Demi Vollering into the Muur, Kapelmuur. Vollering put the hammer down. Cassia Nieuwsblad, Liana Lippert, Pok Pedersen and Marlon Reusser able to go with her. By the top though, it would be just Vollering and Pedersen that were together. Even the firepower of these two, with a gap of just over 5 minutes to the breakaway group, was going to be just about impossible to try and bring back. Cassia Nieuwsblad, Liana Lippert and Marlon Reusser digging in. Pedersen and Vollering would work well together behind. But up at the head of the race, it was going to come down to a sprint between 2 surprise riders. If you'd told Lotte Klaas and Arella Nurlo at the beginning of the day that they would battle it out for an iconic classic like Omloop Het Nieuwsblad, they probably wouldn't have believed you. Lotte Klaas attacking with 4.5 kilometres to go. You trying to use one of the final little rises to get clear. Arella Nurlo wise to it. She made it back to the Belgian, and they would come into Nineveh and battle it out for the win between the 2 of them. Is this going to be the big moment for the Belgian? Arella Nurlo, 1 kilometre to go is a huge time to go. Here comes Lotte Klaas off the wheel. Nurlo went long. Klaas are Arkea B&B Hotels. Comes through as Nurlo got anything left. Lotte Klaas now draws out that sprint. You can see the fatigue of both riders, but Lotte Klaas takes it for Belgium and Arkea B&B Hotels. A pivotal moment in the career of the 31-year-old Belgian, out there all day, and adds her name to a roll call of honour here in Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. These are the days we live for as cycling fans, when 2 riders put everything on the line for the breakaway. It pays off. They come all the way to the finish. Behind, Demi Vollering outsprints Pok Pedersen for 3rd. And for Lotte Klaas, the owner of one of the best names in world cycling, gets her first big win as a professional. And for a Belgian, you cannot underestimate the importance of a win in a classic like Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. Your top 10 looks like this. Lotte Klaas takes it from Arella Nurlo. Demi Vollering outsprints Pok Pedersen for the podium. Wiebes, Gasparini, Georgie Caponi, Flowers and Van Pachterbeke, your top 10. Delight and tears, and understandably so for the Arkea B&B Hotels. A really important and pivotal moment for the team as well as the Belgian Lotte Klaas. Hello and welcome to highlights of the 11th edition of Strade Bianche. 136 kilometres today, including 13 sections of gravel, taking the riders over 50.3 kilometres of the beautiful Tuscany white roads. First section coming 14.2 kilometres into the race, but the Colle Pinzuto and Le Tolfe, the really decisive sections of this race, and then the run to Siena and the Via Santa Caterina, the brutal finish to this incredible classic. There was a puncture for pre-race favourite Demi Vollering and the winner in 2023. The FDJ Suez rider, though, was quickly up and on her way. Just outside 50 kilometres to go, and unfortunately, Cassia Niewiadoma, another pre-race favourite, going down in a crash, and unfortunately, she would be a DNF on the day. Femke Gerritsen of SD Works Pro Time was the next rider to attack into the Colle Pinzuto. Gerritsen already on great form so far this season. The group behind, though, had just thinned down considerably throughout the day with 141 riders starting. It really was becoming a who's who of big-name stars. Liane Lippert with Pauline Ferrand-Prévot on the wheel. And the steep climb of the Colle Pinzuto. Select leading group going clear, including Mavi Garcia, Yara Castelline, but interestingly, Pauline Ferrand-Prévot jumping across to the group. Behind, Elisa Longoborghini in the Italian champs jersey was just not on a good day and was being comforted by teammate Silvia Persico. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, unfortunately, overcooking it on one of the descents, but the Olympic mountain bike champion pretty much rolled over and straight back on her bike and was back into the leading group. The gap holding just over 30 seconds. Garcia, Ferrand-Prévot, Edze, Castelline, Gerritsen, along with Evita Music, the teammate of Demi Vollering, who was marshalling the group. It was 1:09 with 28.2 kilometres to go. They were heading towards the Monte Chiaro with the Colle Pinzuto and Le Tolfe to come. Elisa Longoborghini, though, was just not having a great day. Evita Music in the breakaway. Juliette Labousse in the French national champions jersey came to the front of the chasers, and she disintegrated the gap, allowing her team leader to launch her move. Puk Pedersen, in pretty much a carbon copy of the week before, was straight on her. Vollering, though, would look down, and after the race we would find out that she did unship her chain. It meant that Labousse had to do the job again. They made it up to the leading group, and with Musique in the break, she could then do a big turn on the front. They would head towards Le Tolfe, and on the run in, it was comeback queen Anna van der Breggen, the winner of this race in 2018, that made the most of the descent on the gravel, and she would launch herself into the final climb with a small gap. She didn't look back. Le Tolfe maxing out at 18%. It had been an incredible addition of Strade Bianche so far. After 3 years in the team car, Anna van der Breggen back where she belongs. She had a small gap. Vollering coming up, and she closed the gap to her former director sportif and her former coach as they swung left, then right. This was the point where Vollering made a move. Ferrand-Prévot and Labousse had made it on, but it would be two at the head of the race as Vollering took a big glance back over the shoulder. It was the battle that we wanted, and the battle that we really would have anticipated between Demi Vollering and Anna van der Breggen. Vollering, it took her a while to get van der Breggen to work with her, but they would come into Siena with a decent gap over the chasers behind. The Via Santa Caterina with ramps of up to 18%. Van der Breggen made her move at the bottom to try and ride Vollering off her wheel. And as the climb kicked up in front of them, Vollering was in a commanding position, and this is where she would make her move. Van der Breggen's on the front. The crowds are enormous. Demi Vollering now starts to make her move. 500 meters to go. Demi Vollering starting to edge clear. Demi Vollering's got Van der Breggen on the ropes. Demi Vollering of FDJ Swears now gets to the top of the climb. If she afforded herself the opportunity to look back over the shoulder, she would see that she's cracked Anna Van der Breggen. But what a ride by Van der Breggen in the comeback, and Vollering is launching herself through the streets of Siena now to the roars of the Italian crowd. Demi Vollering, the battle of the ages that we wanted. The road will now drop down and she can take the opportunity to enjoy it for the second time. Anna Van der Breggen, second place today after a victory in 2018. The comeback, you would say, is definitely on cue. A battle between Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and MVP Juliette Labousse. It was the two French riders that were fighting out for the third spot on the podium. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot making a return to the pro peloton after focusing on mountain biking for the last number of years. After getting into the breakaway, that crash, the reward, third spot on the podium, fourth for Labousse. What a day for FDJ Suez. Mavi Garcia, Yara Castelline and Puk Pedersen came in the group behind. Why a great day for Lee Fisher-Black behind. Congratulations all round. What a team. They are gelling beautifully. This was the moment where Demi Vollering made her move, and that punchy style of Demi Vollering whipping up the crowd as she came into the Piazza del Campo for her second career win in Strade Bianche. Your top 10 looks like this. Demi Vollering from Anna Van der Breggen and Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, Labousse, Garcia, Castelline, Pedersen, Fisher-Black, Ruick and Schmulders, your top 10. Top step of the podium as Demi Vollering lifts the famous trophy aloft. We're looking forward to more battles with her and Anna Van der Breggen this season. And welcome back, Pauline Ferrand-Prévot. Hello and welcome to highlights of Milano-Sanremo Donne, the monument. And 20 years we have waited to utter those words. Marianne Vos, a pre-race favourite, along with the likes of Elisa Balsamo of Lidl Trek. Lotte Kopecky, though the world champion in her first race of the season with her teammate Lorena Wiebes, would go into the 156 kilometres from Genova to Sanremo as riders to watch along the beautiful iconic coast through Savona, Finale Ligure, through Albenga, and then the climbs of Capomelo, the Capocervo, the Capoberta, then the famous Cipressa and the Poggio, before that fast, twisting, technical descent and the finish on the Via Roma. Flag dropped. There was rain at the start, but the word on the street was that it was dry in Sanremo, and that would be a welcome message for the riders out on the road. A breakaway group did finally manage to go clear. We had Anna Kinnenberg of the Volker Vessels team, who was being chased by Virginia Bortoli of Top Girls Vassa Bortolo and Laura Tomasi of Laboral Cutzia Fondacion. But the peloton, with tailwinds throughout the day, were not letting anyone really get too much of an advantage. They didn't want the same scenario as Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. Lotte Kopecky in her first race of the season was floating around the front of the peloton, but unfortunately, Letizia Paternoster of the Liverlula Jayco team went down right at the front of the peloton. Chaos ensued as many favourites were delayed by the crash. They were heading towards the foot of the Cipressa, and everyone was scrabbling around for positions as they tried to lead into the climb with some advantage at the front. Franti Koch of Picnic Post NL right in the centre at the front. Puk Pedersen, Cassia Nubia Doma, Elisa Longoborghini all up towards the front. Lucinda Brand was doing a phenomenal job along with Amanda Spratt of keeping Elisa Balsamo in the right sort of position for the finish. Kopecky with teammate Lorena Wiebes in the group. Would it come down to a day for the sprinters? There's 9 kilometres from the foot of the technical descent of the Cipressa to the start of the Poggio, and it was Pauline Ferrand-Prévot that came to the front and thinned down the group considerably. Breakaway group did go clear, but unfortunately too many favourites in the front group, including Lotte Kopecky, Blanca Vas, Wiebes and Balsamo. No one wanting to take them clear. The group was brought back by the EF Oakley Cannondale team. A couple of pre-race favourites in there, outsiders of Noemi Rook and Cedrine Cabal. We headed towards the foot of the Poggio, 9.2 kilometres in length. And as we swung right and then left and started the Poggio, it was Cecilia Trupp-Ludwig that came through to the front, and the pace that the Dane would set for teammate Cassia Nubia-Doma would really prevent anyone attacking on the Poggio. Juliette Labousse was the first rider to go, the French champ from FDJ Suez, but really, as we headed up the Poggio, this would be the only attack of the climb. Cassia Nubia-Doma, the winner of the Tour de France Femme, right on the wheel. And as we headed up towards the summit, a last-ditch effort by Nubia-Doma, it would come to nothing, and we would start the descent still with the sprinters in contention. Demi Vollering would try just as they swung left onto the descent. Puk Pieterse, poised and ready. Liana Lippert, Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, Marianne Vos, all still in position. Puk Pieterse was setting a phenomenal pace on the descent, and it did thin the group down considerably. The World Mountain Bike champion was using her descending skills to her advantage. Demi Vollering locked right on the wheel. Elisa Longo Borghini launched an attack just inside 4 kilometers to go. She went through 2K to go, still with that advantage. Would it be the dream scenario for the Italian fans, with Longo Borghini winning in the Tricolore National Champions jersey? Kopecky, though, was on the front, looking to do the lead out for Lorena Wiebes. She had said in pre-race interviews, if this was the scenario, this was the role that she would take. Lorena Wiebes down through the centre. It's going to be between Marianne Vos and Lorena Wiebes. Wiebes and Vos. Wiebes comes through the centre. Lorena Wiebes takes Milano-Sanremo for Team SD Works Pro Time. Marianne Vos and Lorena Wiebes sprinted out. You would say that is one of, if not the biggest win of Lorena Wiebes' career. From the aerial shot, Marianne Vos launches her move first, but Lorena Wiebes had speed to spare and came through to take arguably one of the biggest victories of her career. Your top 10 looks like this. Lorena Wiebes takes Milan-Sanremo ahead of Marianne Vos and Noemi Rook. Ferrand-Prévot, Vollering, Lacourt, Dijget, Balsamo, Labousse and Kopecky, your top 10. What a day for Lorena Wiebes. She has reinvented herself over the last couple of seasons, keeping that incredible sprint, but just opening up the races that she can win by improving her climbing. And what a ride.
We've seen it before, haven't we, where once the speed goes out of the peloton when you're on a climb, it all starts to bunch up, and sometimes you can have a few little troubles there. So everybody wanting to fight into the bottom of these climbs. She's incredibly strong. She loves a breakaway. And when you've got riders like that and Katia Ragusa, who's in some good form, Marty, it could be a real threat, a real danger. So it's no surprise that Team SD Works Pro Time were on the front and controlling to bring things back.
Yeah, they were not having another Nieuwsblad. The amber crack of FDJ Suez on the Bannenberg here, just starting to kick things off. If you are just joining us today, welcome aboard. This is Gent-Wevelgem in Flanders fields from Ypres to Wevelgem, 169.9 kilometers today. As we just go back to Francisca Brauser, who was in our breakaway group, and it was job done. Side here.
She's doing a lot of chasing today, Longo Borghini, always finding herself on the wrong side of splits, wrong positioning, quite isolated by the looks of things on several occasions that we've seen so far. For Georgia there, the British champion, just going through your shot. There's Christina Schweinberger, who finished in the top 10 last year, the former Austrian road race champion.
Chiara
Consoni. One to watch out for.
Yeah, Consoni just a few riders ahead here of Elisa Longoborghini. So Chiara Consoni doing the classic drift, sprinter drift on these climbs. It's just try and start as far forward as you can, try and chase back on over the top. But you've got Lotte Kopecky just going clear, so small group. Henderson, Chabet, Borghese going through. Is that Van Pachtenbaker? It looks like that's just gone through. There's Lucinda Brand with Sarah Roy in the pink. So Lucinda Brand of the Lidl Trek team. Quite a split that we've got at the front here, Hannah.
It is, and Wiebes has made the front split too. You can just see her coming through here. She's also got a teammate, Misha Bredel. The wrong side of splits, one of those being Alison Jackson, who of course is making her return to racing, having broken a wrist in stage 1 of the UAE Tour. So she's been out of action, but she's back today, and you know, fair play to her, because it's not been an easy race so far. But Little Czech, they're really wanting to apply the pressure and really do some damage here and try and split things, try and do something while everybody is really in the hurt locker.
They are. It's Loretta Hansen that's putting everyone in the hurt locker here. One after the other, the Lidl Trek team are going on the attack. We saw Anna Henderson going. We've seen Ellen van Dijk. And now Loretta Hansen is on the attack. So good move from the Aussie, one of the most respected riders in the peloton, experienced riders in the peloton. Clear, and it's Misha Bredevold that's giving chase for the SD Works Pro Time team. So Manley of AG Insurance, Soudal. Is that Jana Korova in there for Jaco Lula? The Volker Vessels team. Looks like Annika Dijkstra that's also got up into this move. And then the rider just on the back is Marta Jaskulska. So good mix of teams here, Hannah, trying to go clear.
A really good mix of teams. Several different teams represented. It's a real dangerous move, the fact that everyone should be, I think, committed and willing to work on gradients of over 21%. So it might come with 34.3 kilometers to go into the race, and you think, oh, no problem, we've got time to come back if we do get distance for the finish. But it's such a hard, brutal climb. It's just awful, isn't it? And then, of course, you've got the fast descent over the other side. But it's leg sapping, and you can see everybody as the world champion starts to turn the screw. At the front here, Lotte Kopecky, immediately followed by Elisa Longoborghini and Amber Crack. Elise Chabet, sorry.
Onto the cobblestones, here we go, and it's the world champion. So SD Works Pro Time, FDJ Suez, there you have it. There is the monster that Hannah Walker was just describing, 21% at that point on the climb. And you can see now the rainbow bike of the world champion, but look at Lorena Wiebes here in that European champions jersey, powering her way up towards her teammate Elisa Longoborghini, Chloe Dygert, Anna Henderson, all here, and it just starts to rear up in front of the riders here. The cobblestones, look at the pace of Lotte Kopecky as Anna Henderson swings across to the right. Chabet is there. But Lorena Wiebes in the white jersey, the European champion, as he said, hunting for win number 100, is right on the back of her teammate.
Look how brutal these cobbles are. Riders zigzagging left to right, just to get themselves over. Kopecky making this look so seamless, so effortless. Oh.
Lotte Kopecky gets Filiero on the front. Good to see Letizia Borghese in here for EF Oatly Cannondale, the Italian. Borghese, stage winner in the Giro early on in her career, and came in just year on year. Would have to deal with or was dealing with a huge amount of pressure and expectation after you take that. Is indeed Anna Henderson driving things on the front for her teammate, who just grabbing a drink out of the bottle. Elisa Balsamo, Picnic Postenel, trying to get Charlotte Kohl back into position. Letizia Paternoster just sits up in the purple.
But for SD Works Pro Time, they just want to make sure that they keep the pace high, try and deter any kind of attack, any kind of counter-attack from any team, any rival.
Kopecky, just we know the final lead out for Kopecky as we go under the Flamme Rouge, and here come the Visma Lisa bike team. They've got Fidanza in the team. Kopecky and Wiebes are sat second and third. Balsamo is poised and ready. Where is Charlotte Kohl? She's a little bit further back than she would probably want to be. Balsamo has got the elbows out, but Lotte Kopecky, the pressure right on the front here, and Wiebes is going to get the perfect lead out now from her teammate. Balsamo shuffled just a few riders back. Imogen Wolf is right in the mix here for the Visma Lisa bike team. 400 meters to go, and Kopecky out of the saddle is here comes Chloe Dygert straight down the center with Chiara Consoni on the wheel. Gillespie has found her way through. It is a drag race between Dygert and Kopecky as Wiebes launches the move, but Balsamo is right on the wheel and Charlotte Kohl is there. Wiebes down the center. Is it going to be the century now for Lorena Wiebes as she crosses the line? 100 career victories for Lorena Wiebes. Hannah, perfectly delivered by Kopecky yet again.
Once again, what an execution. Winning back-to-back here in Gent-Wevelgem. Lorena Wiebes, the European champion, finishing off the job. Another sterling lead out from the world champion Lotte Kopecky. But all round, what a team effort from Cecchini, Bredewold, Lack and Marcus to try and set things up with Kopecky. All for Lorena Wiebes. They were so in control all day. This rider is absolutely impeccable. 100 career victories.
Hannah, you know, as a ex-pro yourself, to be this consistent, sprinting, to be able to find your way through the melee, to be able to have this level of form throughout the year it's spectacular. She is a generation. Hello and welcome to highlights of Dwars door of Vlaanderen, the 13th edition of this race. Starting and finishing in Waregem, it's 128.5 kilometers, a 4.9 kilometer neutralized section the riders would have heading out of the famous Waregem Hippodrome. A great field assembled, 141 starters. Unfortunately, Marianne Vos and Chiara Consoni not taking to the start. The mini Tour of Flanders, the race across Flanders. 7 climbs and 6 sections of cobblestones. The first climb, the Valkenburg, taking in the Berg ten Hout, the Nocturberg, famous cobbled sections such as the Maria Borenstraat. 78 kilometers to go. There had been a few early attacks, but the peloton was still very much together as we headed towards the Valkenburg. Unfortunately, a crash in the bunch just as we ran in towards the climb. Took down a few riders. Elisa Longaborghini of UAE ADQ very much up towards the front, as was Lotte Kopecky of SD Works Pro Time. Without last year's winner, Marianne Vos, in the race, and also the 2022 winner, Chiara Consoni, it was anyone's race. Onto the Nocturberg, and Liana Lippert throwing the power down on the front. Cassia Nubia Doma able to go with her. This would thin down the group considerably. Justine Heda of AG Insurance Soudal just going to the back of the group. A 4-rider group going clear. Marlon Reusser, Amber Crack, Lucinda Brand and Femke Geretzer. Just 7 seconds was the gap. They headed on towards the Ekenberg. Marlon Reusser put the power down, dropping Lucinda Brand and Geretzer. Only Amber Crack of FDJ Suez was able to go with her. Two strong time trialists. Could they stay clear to the finish? For SD Works Pro Time, it meant it would shake things up considerably. Onto the Dawn section of cobblestones, and Ella van Dijk of Little Trek put the hammer down, and with her went Elisa Longa Borghini and Cassie at Nubia Doma. There was decimation in the peloton behind as it was being shredded by the power of Ella van Dijk, but Elisa Longa Borghini used a small rise to jump clear of that duo, made it across to the two leaders, and it wouldn't take long before the Italian champ of UAE ADQ started to edge clear on her own. Marlon Reusser of the team of Movistar would make it back to Longa Borghini, who then showed her power through the corners and would then go clear on her own. It was Longa Borghini against the rest. Great time trialist is the Italian national champion. Reusser and Crack were closed in by the group being led by Ellen van Dijk. Also in there, the likes of Puk Pieterse, Elisa Balsamo, who Lidl Trek were working for. Puk Pieterse, after being thrown into the climb by teammate Christina Schweinberger, attacked over the top. Lotte Kopecky, the world champion, was not on her best day, but kept making it back into the group. There was times where it did look like the group were going to come back to Elisa Longa Borghini, but she came into Waregem and seeing the finish ahead of her, took career win number 50, her first win in Dwars door Vlaanderen, and sends out some warning shots ahead of Ronde van Vlaanderen this weekend, where she'll look to do the hat-trick. Lotte Kopecky led in the group behind, sprinting out Elisa Balsamo for second, with Puk Pieterse crossing the line in fourth. Elisa Longa Borghini putting some of the troubles of the last few weeks behind her. She started the season strongly down in the UAE Tour. She's back on top form. Your top 10 looks like this. Elisa Longa Borghini takes it ahead of Lotte Kopecky and Elisa Balsamo, with Pieterse, Bredevold, Lippert, Guattini, Confalonieri, Shabby and Edson, your top 10. A great day and a big name at podium yet again. Elisa Longa Borghini takes Dwars door Vlaanderen for the first time in her career ahead of Lotte Kopecky and Elisa Balsamo. We now head to Sunday and the Ronde van Vlaanderen. Hello and welcome to highlights of the 22nd edition of the Ronde van Vlaanderen. It is Holy Week in Belgium, 168.8 kilometers starting and finishing in Oudenaarde. What a field we have assembled to take on this year's edition of the race. 19 sections of climbs and cobblestones, the first of them, the Dawn section with 112.6 to go, but then into the most famous and iconic climbs in world cycling.
Hello and welcome to a very sunny, blue-skied Oudenaarde for the start of the Tour of Flanders. The atmosphere is incredible here, awaiting the start of the women's race. Of all the women's teams I've spoken to today, the team that stands out for me is SD Works Pro Time. They seem so confident. The riders that I spoke to with Lotte Kopecky and Lorena Wiebes, they've got several plans up their sleeve, and in comparison to the others, they just seem like they have so many different scenarios. Let's take a look how the race unfolded in the highlights.
The gun fired, almost, and the flag dropped. The riders were underway for the unofficial start. The flag waved after a 4.9 kilometer neutralized section, and the break of the day would go pretty early on in the day with 164 kilometers to go. 8 riders going clear. Unfortunately, a big crash in the peloton, taking down Lorena Wiebes and also Elisa Longa Borghini, one of the pre-race favourites. She'd won Dwars door Vlaanderen in the week, and along with Lotte Kopecky, was looking to do a historic triple. Our breakaway group: Nicole Steigenga of AG Insurance Soudal, Francisca Brause of Sarah Tizet, Romy Casper of Human Powered Health, Alison Avoine of Saint Michel, Preference over 93, Britt de Graver of DG Group, April Tacey of Cooper Repsol, and Aoife O'Brien of Das Hutchinson. The big news, though, as we hit 70 kilometres to go, that Elisa Longa-Borghini had unfortunately had to abandon the race. We were now getting into some of the most iconic climbs in the world of cycling. We were on to the Eichenberg, and it was Petersen that came through to the front to set the pace. She would start to shred the group down considerably. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot in the yellow and black colours of Team Visma. Lisa Bike very much to the front. Nicole Stagenga of AG Insurance Soudal was the final rider standing as they hit the iconic Koppenberg. 600 meters, 11.6 average, maxing out at 22%. Petersen, Kopecky, Reusser, Lippert, Lecourt, Paternoster, all still very much up towards the front. This would be the real shakedown of the race. Unfortunately, too many big names in that breakaway group. It allowed a substantial number of riders to come back to them. Nicole Stagenga, though, was swept up just inside 40 kilometers to go after the Maria Borastrat, the Steenbeck-Dries, but unfortunately Amber Crack and Elise Chabet going down on a slippery section of cobblestones. They delayed Pauline Ferrand-Prévot. The two FDJ Suez riders, unfortunately, not quite as quick to get back on the bikes. It was Loretta Hansen of Lidl Trek that attacked with 35 kilometers to go, and with her, Misha Bredevold of SD Works Pro Time. They headed to the Oude Kruisberg Houtond Combo, 2,700 meters, maxing out at 9.4%. The peloton behind, it would be Liana Lippert that threw down a big attack on the Oude Kruisberg, and this would be the next shakedown in the race. Lippert crossing to Bredevold, and Hansen behind them. Lorena Vibes had done a lot of work for Lotte Kopecky today. So had Kat Ferguson, wearing number 105, the World Junior Road and Time Trial champion, doing a phenomenal ride for Movistar. A select leading group coming together as we headed towards the Oude Quaremont. This would shred this group considerably. Bredevold and Hansen, the first two riders to get dropped. It was Pauline Ferrand-Prévot that hit the gas pedal and took the group clear. Liana Lippert, Lotte Kopecky, Cassia Nuvia-Doma able to go with them. Letizia Paternoster would also make it up, but the legs would go pop as they headed over the summit of the Oude Quaremont and headed towards the final climb of the day, the Paterberg. On Ronde van Vlaanderen-Straat, the four leading group, put Petersen on the front of the group behind, was doing a lot of work for Fenix de Koning. Onto the Paterberg, maxing out at 20.3%, averaging 12.9. The quartet of leaders would swing left at the top and head towards Oudenaarde. It was 11.7 kilometers from the top in towards the finish, and a headwind would take them right through to the Flamme Rouge with 1 kilometer to go. Kopecky on the front, Ferrand-Prévot, Lippert on the back. Lotte Kopecky now opens up the sprint. Liana Lippert launches the move from the back. Kopecky has the front. Is Kopecky going to do the hat-trick? Kopecky powers clear. It is going to be boom, boom, Belgium yet again. Kopecky takes the third victory. Shows us the guns at the line. Lotte Kopecky, Belgian hearts sing yet again.
It's the world champion who makes history, becoming the first rider to win the Women's Tour of Flanders on 3 occasions. And what a way to do it. You can see and hear at the finish line the absolute roar from organisation, also the volunteers who are here, but also when I took a look down the finishing straight, the roar and the noise that was made. I mean, take a look at what this means to the world champion Lotte Kopecky.
Your top 10 looks like this. Lotte Kopecky takes the Tour of Flanders for the 3rd time in her career, ahead of Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and Liana Lippert. Nuvia-Doma, Lecourt, Borghese, Chabet, Van Dijk, Petersen and Reusser. Your top 10. What a day, what a podium. Lotte Kopecky does an historic hat-trick, the first woman to take the Ronde van Vlaanderen on 3 occasions. The Women's World Tour now heads to Paris-Roubaix in 1 week's time. But today, Belgian hearts are smiling yet again. The victory in the Ronde goes to the home nation and Lotte Kopecky.
Goedemiddag, good afternoon, welcome from Belgium. This is Schoten, just north of Antwerp, and this is the Scheldeprijs edition number 5. Start was given at 11:40 a.m. and the riders on the podium here with AG Insurance, Soudal, the under-23 squad, and of course always smiling Alison Jackson, Marta Truide for Phoenix de Koning, and yes, at 11:40 the flag drops for the 136 riders starting this race of 130.3 kilometers. First up north, then past the cyclocross towns of Loenhout and Hoogstraten, and then back south towards the finish line on the Churchilaan in Schoten for 3 local laps of 16.9 kilometers, with one cobbled sector called the Broekstraat. This is the Albert Canal. Normally, when there's wind in this race, it's always a tricky part of the course, but today, a lovely spring day, 15 degrees Celsius and hardly any wind. Early on in the race, we had a breakaway of 2 riders. Alison Mugel here with 1:56 for the Siniska cycling team, and Emilia Tyler for Hansling Alba Development. One rider from Pennsylvania in the USA and one from Bangor County Down in Ireland. Maximum lead, 2.5 minutes. There were a few counter-attacks, but most of the peloton was pretty okay with these 2 riders in the breakaway, as they did not pose a threat. But a lovely day for these smaller teams to get a little bit of attention. Siniska Cycling and the Hansling Alba team from the UK. 3 more laps to go. The gap is gradually coming down for our 2 leaders, 2 very well educated leaders. Mugel, she holds a master's, and Emilia Tyler, she is studying for a degree in biomedical engineering at the University of Edinburgh. 21 years only, the rider from Ireland. These are the cobbles, although if we look at Saturday, we can hardly call them cobbles. We'll just call them an uneven surface. But it's on that part where we'll see some attacks. This is Femke Marcus of SD Worx Pro Time. The previous 4 editions, all editions of the Scheldeprijs, were won by Lorena Wiebes, but she's not here today. She's preparing for Paris-Roubaix Femmes Alex Swift on Saturday. So the SD Worx Pro Time team tried another tactic. Femke Marcus on the attack, and then another attack led by Zoe Beckstedt and Marie Schreiber comes across to our 2 leaders, and then we have a breakaway of 10 riders. Marie Schreiber, Femke Gerritsen, both for SD Worx Pro Time. And Femke Gerritsen, she showed on Saturday in the Volta Next Classic. She's got the fast legs. Also in this breakaway, we have Julie de Wilde, we have Zoe Beckstedt, of course, Anna Henderson is there, Sarah Roy, Alicia Gonzalez Blanco, Scarlett Soere, and our original 2 riders from the breakaway with Alison Mugel and Emilia Tyler. It looked like they were going to stay away, especially due to the motoring here of Marie Schreiber for the chances of Femke Gerritsen. But in the final kilometre, everything did come back together, and we would have that sprint here on the Churchilaan. With Lizzie Dijknen and Clara Copponi doing the lead out there for Elisa Balsamo with the red helmet through the middle. On her wheel, we have Chiara Consonni for Canyon SRAM Zonda Crypto. And a little bit hidden in a bunch at the moment is Charlotte Kool, who was the runner-up in the previous 2 editions. But she's the first to launch her sprint, and she's going to do it right now. There she goes, Charlotte Kool, going from far, far away. And then on the other side of the road, we have Elisa Balsamo with Chiara Consonni on her wheel. It looks like Charlotte Kool is going to get it after 2 second places, but with an ultimate jump right here, Elisa Balsamo takes the win in Scheldeprijs for the Lidl Track team. A true team effort there with that lead out by Lizzie Dijknen and Clara Copponi. Sadly, Yaya Sanganetti, she crashed. Also on the team today were Felicity Wilson-Havenden and of course Anna Henderson in that breakaway, making sure that Lidl Track didn't have to do all the work. And Picnic Postenel, the team of Charlotte Kool, did do a lot of work. A nice podium here with Elisa Balsamo, Charlotte Kool and Chiara Consonni. Barbara Guarici, Katrien Schweinberger, Zanardi, Baker, Van Hoven, Diederiksen and Lucy Fitches all in the top 10 of this edition of the Scheldeprijs edition number 5. And the first time we have another winner than Lorena Wiebes. We'll see Lorena Wiebes on Saturday alongside many of these riders in one of the biggest days of women's cycling, and that is of course Paris-Roubaix Femmes avec Zwift. But first, smiling faces on the podium in this lovely, lovely sunny spring weather in the Scheldeprijs.
The sun was shining on the north of France, and the Enfer du Nord, the hell of the north, was waiting the riders who were set to take the start in Denain in glorious sunshine. The world champion and winner of the Ronde van Vlaanderen, Lotte Kopecky, one of the big pre-race favourites. The women's race of course starts in Denain, does a 40-kilometre loop south before working its way through 17 pavé sectors, just under 30 kilometres of pavé in total, taking in most of the final sectors of the men's race that will be tomorrow, and including the 2 5-star sectors of Mont-Saint-Pével and the Carrefour de l'Arbre, which comes with just 15 kilometres to go. Unchanged route from last year, and the peloton getting to know these cobbles in this race's very, very young history. One of those who performed particularly well last year was Ellen van Dijk, and once again, as she'd done at Flanders, she was working in a heavyweight team worker role to take the pressure off her very experienced Lidl Trek riders around her behind, working by the looks of it for Elisa Balsamo, but riding her own ride out front too. Lotte Kopecky was being forced to set the pace and chase on the road sectors in between cobbles to close up the gaps. And all the while, Lorena Wiebes, her teammate in the European champion skin suit, just watching things and waiting. Ellen van Dijk would catch Ton and Neerlo, who were the early breakaway of just 2 riders, and actually they would stay with her for only a short while because Ellen van Dijk was on a fantastic ride. The cobblestones were dusty and dry enough to cause this crash as we came onto Auchy-les-Auchy, taking out 2 of the Visma Lease bike riders, including Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, the French Olympic mountain bike world champion from Paris last year. Meanwhile up front, a very dangerous trio had distanced itself, led by Lotte Kopecky, taking with her Lorena Wiebes herself, and they hooked up with Ellen van Dijk, taking Marianne Vos with her. Marianne Vos was watching absolutely everything that Lotte Kopecky did, and throughout the race, until the very closing stages, every time Kopecky moved, Vos was right on her. Working their way through the sectors, the group that had been really big was getting smaller and smaller every single time, and it split into 2 that would then rejoin as well. Lidl Trek were there in numbers, as were Visma Lease bike, who'd regrouped after that early crash. And once again, it was Lotte Kopecky and Marianne Vos drawing themselves clear, trying to stay clear of the others. Jelena Eric, the Serbian road race champion, was on a fantastic ride all day, reacting and attacking herself as well. Well, after the solo escapade of Ellen van Dijk, it would be the turn of Emma Norsgaard for Lidl Trek. The Norwegian had already been 6th and 11th at the Paris-Roubaix Femmes avec Zwift and would spend time out front. With 25k to go, Pauline Ferrand-Prévot chose to try and ride across to Emma Norsgaard, and there was not a big reaction from behind either. Ferrand-Prévot would hook up with Norsgaard and not too long afterwards start to turn it on some of the final sectors as well. It was just a little bit too much for Norsgaard to hang on to. She would continue by herself in second, but Pauline Ferrand-Prévot was eking out a lead that was getting closer all the time towards the minute mark. Going into the last couple of sectors, Pauline Ferrand-Prévot was rolling a really big gear and hanging on. Norsgaard was just about to be caught behind. In the final 10 kilometres, Norsgaard caught and then passed by the group that was led by Jelena Eric. It also had, let's not forget, Lotte Kopecky and Lorena Wiebes in there. Riders in the group behind started to look at each other, and with 5 kilometres to go, we were pretty certain it was looking like Pauline Ferrand-Prévot was going to take the win. Marianne Vos was reacting to everything behind, desperate to make sure she would be on the podium at the very least, because there were individuals in the group who started to try their hand. Lotte Kopecky had turned herself to working for Lorena Wiebes and in the end would be distanced from the group behind, hoping that Wiebes at the very least would get herself onto the podium. Alison Jackson and Laetitia Borghese had made it into the group in the pink of EF Education Oatly, but coming into the velodrome, turning onto the Roubaix velodrome, it became clear that France were about to get its first champion in its home race in Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, the Olympic mountain bike champion, the woman who's been road, mountain bike and cyclocross world champion all in the same season, came across the line with a butterfly fluttering above her and took the win in the 5th edition. France at last, at short last, had got its winner. A fantastic late attack from Laetitia Borghese carried the Italian to 2nd place on the podium, with which she was delighted. And then came this sprint between Marianne Vos and Lorena Wiebes. Wiebes in the end getting it by the smallest of margins from that leading group. Fantastic ride by the defending champion Lotte Kopecky, working for her teammate Lorena Wiebes, but off the podium on this occasion. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot celebrating the fact that she'd now equalled her boyfriend Dylan van Baarle by winning Paris-Roubaix, as he had done, and looking across the velodrome, seeing that she had plenty of time to celebrate. At the finish, it was a 58-second margin over Laetitia Borghese, and it has to be pointed out, this was Pauline Ferrand-Prévot on her debut at the Paris-Roubaix Femmes avec Swift. Quite the debut. Scenes looking down on the velodrome were absolutely glorious. The sunny weather had held, and there was the top 10. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot from Laetitia Borghese and Lorena Wiebes making up the podium just ahead of Marianne Vos in that really tight sprint. Fantastic sunny days racing. Don't forget to join us tomorrow for the men's race too. Fingers crossed it's just as beautiful. I know it will be.
Hello and welcome to highlights of the 10th edition of Brabantse Pijl. Marco van Pachtenbaker up to sign on, always does well in this race. Happy birthday to Anna van der Breggen from Team SD Works. Elisa Longo-Borghini, Marianne Vos amongst the big pre-race favourites. When we were here in 2024, it was Elisa Longo-Borghini who took the victory ahead of Demi Vollering and Alex Manley. Longo-Borghini's teammate Sylvia Persico, another potential favourite. Young Kat Ferguson of Movistar, never a rider to discount already in her young career. But Lennox once again played host to the start of Brabantse Pijl. We're taking in the Bruneput, the Eiger-Brackelse Steenweg, heading towards a finishing circuit with the Hertstraat, the Holzheide, the Moskestraat and the S-Bocht in Overijse. 19 climbs in total. It was a fast start to the race and it took a while for a break to become established. Onto the S-Bocht for the first time, and it was Amber Crack of FDJ Suez that went on the attack. Femke Gerritsen of SD Works Pro Time right with her. The fast descent after Overijse. It was still taking a while for a breakaway to be established, but Kayla Harvey of SD Works Pro Time, one rider that was keen to get things underway, as was Sylvia Persico, who was trying to encourage Amanda Spratt through to the front. Spratt, you know the experience, just get working and everything else will follow. Onto the Moskestraat with 50 kilometres to go, and the peloton was being led by Misha Bredevold. The back doors were really open. The peloton were fracturing under the pressure, but it was Niamh Fisher-Black of Lidl Trek that went on the offensive just after the climb, and she took a group clear that would eventually form with Brodie Chapman, Jade Veal, Fisher-Black, Monica Trinker-Colonel, Steffi Haviland, Eva van Aert and Anna Kneinenberg of the Volker Wessels team. They established a good gap. It was Phoenix de Koenig who had missed the breakaway that were trying to get the likes of Jara Castellijn and perhaps Paulina Royackers into contention. Into Overijse and up the famous S-Bocht climb that had formed part of the 2021 World Road Race Championships, and the gap was coming down. Josie Nelson of Picnic Post NL, the young British rider, tried to get on to the breakaway. She needed to do it quickly. Unfortunately, she didn't quite make it and would be caught from the group behind. Brodie Chapman of UAE ADQ was doing a great job in the breakaway. Niamh Fisher-Black was looking strong for the team of Lidl Trek. 36 kilometres to go onto the Hertstraat for the penultimate time. Behind, one rider that was making a name for herself was B Pink's Aileen Schweikart, who had to run the Mosca Strat. Elisa Longa-Borghini on the Holst-Heider, attacked from the peloton, initially taking Marianne Vos and Anna Henderson with her, but this devastating way that Elisa Longa-Borghini attacks, it meant that Henderson and Vos couldn't stay with her. She made contact with the breakaway group, all of whom managed to stay with the flying Italian. It was then up to SD Worx Pro Time to chase the group behind. Anna van der Breggen, on her birthday, was the rider doing a majority of the work. It was her against Brodie Chapman, who had gone across the UAE ADQ with Elisa Longa-Borghini to do just this sort of job. The peloton behind was coming back together with multiple riders, making it back into the group, onto the S-Box and through the line with 1 lap to go. It was a considerable sized group that went through the line, being led by Olympic champion Kristen Faulkner and US national champion, looking resplendent in her Stars and Stripes jersey. Rihanna Marcus of the Lidl Trek team was the next rider to go on the offensive. The dangerous Dutch rider, phenomenal time trialist. Alarm bells were sounding in the group behind Marcus, not a rider that you wanted to let go clear. On to the next climb of the day, the Hertstraat. And it was Kristen Faulkner that went on the attack. The Hertstraat behind them. The Mosca Strat was ahead. Teams leading out into it. Magdalena Valieras on the front. But the climb that has become famous for Elisa Longa-Borghini, the Mosca Strat, with her husband being called Jacopo Mosca. She always jokes about this climb, but she went on the attack, swung right at the top. And you could see behind, yet again, the Italian, who's coming back from a concussion and a crash in the Tour of Flanders. Pre-race interview, she said she wasn't quite sure how the legs would feel. The answer was pretty good. She had built advantage, 25 seconds with 7K to go. It was 24 with 3.2 to go, with Niamh Fisher-Black, Monica Trinca-Colonel and Anna van der Breggen doing the work on the front of the group behind. It was 3 against 1, and they would run in towards Overijse and the S-Box climb for the final time. And despite a devastating attack from Misha Bredevold to try and lead out the group behind for Femke Gerritsen, Elisa Longa-Borghini crossed the line to make it 2 years and 2 victories and become the first rider to win Brabantse Pijl twice, with Vos leading in Gerritsen from the group behind to round out the podium. As we go into the Ardennes week with Amstel Gold, Fleche Wallonne, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, Elisa Longa-Borghini is back and on big form. There's your top 10. Elisa Longa-Borghini, Marianne Vos, Femke Gerritsen, your podium. Gasperini, Henderson, Musique, Kastelein, Chabet, Ferguson and Scaliac-Soika, your top 10. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see the podium on the live broadcast, but Elisa Longa-Borghini stands on the top step for the second time in 2 years and become the first rider to win the race twice. Hello and welcome to highlights of the 11th edition of the Amstel Gold Ladies Race. From Maastricht to Berg on to Blight. What a field assembled for this edition of the Amstel Gold Race. Could Marianne Vos make it 3 career wins after taking the victory ahead of Lorena Wiebes last year? The Amstel Gold Race taking place in the South Limburg region of Netherlands, starting in Maastricht. 22 climbs in total, a touch under 2,000 meters of climbing. It's the finishing circuit that features the Gulhemmerberg, the Bemelerberg and the iconic Kouwberg. First passage of the line with 73.4 kilometers to go. A leading group had formed after an early breakaway group had been caught, but it included Marion Brunel of Visma Lease Bike, Lorena Wiebes, Blanca Vasch, Misha Bredevold, Katrina Allerudny, Bradbury and Henderson. Yara Castelline, Ellen van Dijk, Quinty Tom, Mairead Meiring, Paola Patino, Alison Jackson, Sylvia Persico, Brodie Chapman, to name just a few. On to the Cowberg, and it was Juliette Labousse who attacked out of the group with a touch over 20 kilometres to go. She took the group clear, but ominously, every time anyone moved, Lorena Wiebes, the fastest sprinter in the group, was still in contention. Through the line with 1 lap to go, and it was Ellen van Dijk that was leading the group. They had 3 climbs to try and get rid of Lorena Wiebes if they could. Puk Pieterse of the Fenix de Koning team going on the attack on the Gulchemmerberg, and she would manage to split the group. And for once, Lorena Wiebes not able to go with the leaders. It was Juliette Labousse and Sylvia Persico that linked up with Puk Pieterse, Ellen van Dijk and Misha Bredevold, working well together in the background, would also make it contact, giving us 5 leading riders. 3 from the Netherlands in Pieterse, van Dijk and Bredevold, 1 from France with Labousse and 1 from Italy with Persico. Ellen van Dijk had dropped to the back of the group, just inside 6k to go, and with 5.7 to the finish, she launched her move. No one able to go with her initially, but Misha Bredevold of SD Works Pro Time sensed that this was the moment that the race could be won. She jumped up to Ellen van Dijk, and they would take the fast descent into the foot of the Cowberg with an advantage over that chasing group of Pieterse, Persico and Labousse onto the Cowberg. And it was the 24-year-old Dutch rider who launched her bid for glory. Ellen van Dijk initially not able to go with her. And for Misha Bredevold, the former European champion, she would go over the top of the Cowberg. And was she heading towards the biggest victory of her career? She looked back, and this was the moment. For a home rider, she took the iconic Amstel Gold Race, and SD Works Pro Time do it yet again. The sprint behind Ellen van Dijk edges out Puk Pieterse for an all-Dutch podium. You can see just how frustrated Juliette Labousse is, with Sylvia Persico coming home in 5th. But elation for Misha Bredevold, the biggest win of her career. Your top 10 looks like this. Misha Bredevold from Ellen van Dijk and Puk Pieterse with Labousse, Persico, Wiebes, Jackson, Henderson, Ton and Roldan, your top 10. What a day, what a podium this year. It belongs to Misha Bredevold ahead of Ellen van Dijk and Puk Pieterse. Now head to the second of the Ardennes Classics with Fleche Wallonne and Liège-Bastogne-Liège in a week's time. Hello and welcome to highlights of the 28th edition of La Fleche Wallonne Classic. 140.7 kilometres today, finishing atop the famous Mur de Huy. The biggest names in the world of cycling on the start, but one of the pre-race favourites, Anna van der Breggen, not managing to take the start because of illness. Niamh Bradbury, another big favourite, not able to take to the start. The iconic race starting in Huy, taking in the Côte de Bohosseau after 10.5 kilometres, and then it's the Côte de Petit Somme before we take in the Côte de Ref, the Côte de Chirave, and the first passage of the Mur de Huy coming with 37.2 kilometres to go. A loop round back up the Côte de Ref, up the Côte de Chirave, and then the final romp up towards the finish. It was Cédrine Cabal of EF Oatly that went on the attack. She had chased down an early attack of Anna Kneinenberg. The French rider going clear with 52 kilometres to go. She came into the first descent of the Mur de Huy with the teams behind trying to control things. They knew that the dangerous French rider was not one to let go clear, especially in these sort of conditions. They were keeping the gap around about 30 seconds to a minute, but in her famous style, Cédrine Cabal, affectionately known as Kaboom, was going down swinging. It was FDJ Suez, the team of Demi Vollering, that were working hard on the front, as were the Phoenix de Koning team for Puk Pieterse. It was into the climb of the Côte de Ref. The summit would come with 18.4 kilometers to go. Elise Chabet leading things for Demi Vollering, who had won this race in 2023. She had finished second to Cassia Nieuwsblad in 2024. Cabal and over the top, managing to hold her advantage, and she would head towards the Côte du Chirave still with a lead intact. She hit the lower slopes. It ramps up to a maximum of 13%. It's 1.3 kilometers in length, but this would spell the end of the day in the breakaway for Cedrine Cabal. The team of SD Works Pro Time, Lotte Kopecky trying to keep her up towards the front. Lidl Trek in the red, yellow and blue colours for Nive. Fisher Black, they ran into the foot of the Mur de Huy, and it was Juliette Labousse, MVP so far this season for FDJ Suez, doing an incredible job on the front once again for Demi Vollering. Cassia Nieuwsblad poised and ready in third wheel. Puk Pieterse in the burnt orange colours of the Phoenix de Koning team. Juliette Labousse went as deep into the climb, and I'm sure as deep into the red as she could go. It was now going to come down to a straight fight for the biggest champions in the peloton. Vollering, Pieterse, Lippert, Nieuwsblad, Ninka Vinke, Nie Fisher Black, Kim Lacourt, all still up towards the front, but it would come down really to a straight fight between Vollering, Pieterse, Longo Borghini, and Liana Lippert and Cassia Nieuwsblad. Nieuwsblad is still there and poised and ready. Demi Vollering ups the pace now on the front. It means that Puk Pieterse gets out of the saddle. Is it going to become a fight between Vollering and Pieterse? Puk Pieterse now makes a move. The world champion on the mountain bike, the multi-discipline sensation of world cycling. Puk Pieterse makes a move. 100 meters to go. Is it going to be the classic victory for Puk Pieterse? Puk Pieterse is going to take her first big classic win. It is going to be a mighty performance on the Mur de Huy for Puk Pieterse. An incredible victory for Puk Pieterse, sporting congratulations from Demi Vollering, but backed up by Paulina Royakas, Ceylin Del Carmen Alvarado, Sora Casasola, Yara Castelline and Flora Perkins. It doesn't matter what bike it's on, whether it's on the mountain bike, the cyclocross bike or the road bike, Puk Pieterse can do it all, and she adds her name to an iconic list of riders and adds Fleche Wallonne to her victory in the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift last year, the stage into Liège. The big question is now, can she do the double and follow up her win here in Fleche Wallonne with a win on Sunday in Liège-Bastogne-Liège? Our top 10 looks like this. Puk Pieterse takes it ahead of Demi Vollering and Elisa Longo Borghini, Cassia Nieuwsblad, Liana Lippert, Kim Lacourt, Juliette Labousse, Ninka Vinke, Nie Fisher Black, Mitja Gertz is your top 10. What a season she is having. 10th in Milano-Sanremo, the lowest she's finished so far this season. She finally stands on the top step alongside Demi Vollering and Elisa Longo Borghini. The 28th edition of La Fleche Wallonne was an absolute classic. Hello and welcome to highlights of the 9th edition of the Liège-Bastogne-Liège, round 14 of the Women's World Tour for 2025. Touch under 3,000 metres of climbing. Some of the most iconic climbs in world cycling. Marlene Reusser, Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, Cassia Nieuwsblad, Lotte Kopecky and Elisa Longo Borghini. Pretty much a who's who in the world of cycling. Demi Vollering just taking a pre-race chat with her sport director, the winner in 2021 and 2023. A beautiful sunny day awaited the riders, but Liège-Bastogne-Liège starting off with the Côte de Saint-Roch after 15.8 kilometres in length, but the race always comes alive on the Côte de la Redoute. The summit coming with 33 kilometres to go, then the Côte de Forges and the Côte de la Roche au Faucon, the summit of that coming with 13.3 kilometres to go. As we headed towards the Côte de la Redoute, it was Mavis Squibman of France who was in the lead for UAE ADQ. Valentina Cavallard of Arcaia B&B Hotel swept up by the peloton. Anna van der Breggen and Misha Bredevol coming up towards the front for the team of SD Works. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot going over the top of Elisa Longo-Borghini, and that would be the end of the challenge for the Italian champion. Elise Chabet setting a blistering pace on the front. Lotte Kopecky, Cedrine Cabal, Pauline Ferrand-Prévot all up towards the front. Puk Pieterse, the winner of the Fleche Wallonne Classic in the week. She crested the summit in the lead. It would be her teammate Paulina Royakkers who went on the attack. Momentarily joined by the Idiot of the Day award for one of the spectators getting in on the race action. He was quickly off the course though, and it did give us a 4-rider leading group. Antonia Niedermeyer, Anna van der Breggen and Cedrine Cabal making it up to Paulina Royakkers. The gap though was being controlled by the FDJ Suez team. Royakkers third place in the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift in 2024. Juliette Labus, Evita Music, Elise Chabet doing a sterling job working for Demi Vollering. We headed to the Côte de Forges. Cedrine Cabal on the front in the pick of EF Oatley. She'd been on the attack in the Fleche Wallonne Classic in the week. Chabet of FDJ Suez was doing an incredible team role. 23 kilometres to go. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, her first dig. Puk Pieterse and Lotte Kopecky straight with her. The chase was really hard to get working, and it was Movistar with Liana Lippert, Marlon Reusser and Mireille Meiring that were managing to hold the gap. We headed towards the Côte de la Roche-au-Faucon, the gap holding at just over 20 seconds. Royakkers dropped from the group. It meant that Puk Pieterse could go on the attack. Royakkers quickly caught by her teammate who had Lotte Kopecky on the wheel. Royakkers would help to try and launch Puk Pieterse up the road on the final climb of the day. Niedermeyer also distanced from the group. Cabal and van der Breggen, the last 2 riders standing from that quartet. Pieterse made her move. Kopecky and Vollering going with her. Cabal in the pink, able to stay with them. Could it be a day for the world champion to add the Liège-Bastogne-Liège Classic to her palmarès? Vollering, could she do the hat trick? Could Pieterse do the Fleche Wallonne-Liège double? They went over the summit. There would be one climb to go. It's an uncategorized climb. Cabal went on the attack. Kopecky looked down. She looked back at Vollering, who would look back at Pieterse, and this would be the climb where it would all come unstuck for the world champion. She wouldn't have the legs to follow when the attack came. Cedrine Cabal going off on her own. Marlon Reusser made it up to Kopecky, Vollering and Pieterse. The gap to Cabal was 9 seconds. It is a tougher climb than it looks on paper, and why it's not uncategorized always remains to be seen. We ended up with 4 riders in the leading group: Cedrine Cabal, Demi Vollering, Puk Pieterse and Kim Lecourt of AG Insurance Soudal. And these 4 would come into the finish and fight it out between them. Cabal, great descender. Cedrine Cabal, the chasing group behind. Kopecky and van der Breggen were leading it out for SD Works Pro Time. Plenty of attacks at the front group. You would say in this group the unknown quantities in a sprint would be Kim Lecourt and Cedrine Cabal. Vollering led it out. It was Kim Lecourt that came off the wheel, the Mauritian national champion, a stage winner in the Giro in 2024. She held off Puk Pieterse, who'd won the Tour de France avec Zwift stage win here into Liège last year. But it is a first big classic victory for Kim Lecourt. AG Insurance Soudal get their day. Congratulations from Erska Ziegart. The team did a phenomenal job to set it up. Vollering led out the sprint. Lecourt comes off the wheel. Pieterse in the slipstream. But Kim Lecourt powers straight down the middle of the road and adds her name to Anna van der Breggen, Lizzie Deignan, Demi Vollering, Annemiek van Vleuten and Grace Brown as winners of Liège-Bastogne-Liège. The top 10 looks like this. Kim Lacourt takes it for AG Insurance. Soudal ahead of Puk Pieterse and Demi Vollering. Cabal, Kopecky, Royce, Fisher Black, Colonel, Nuvia Doma and Castelline are top 10. What a day and another nation on the top step of the podium today. It's Mauritius. Kim Lacourt takes Liège-Bastogne-Liège ahead of Puk Pieterse and Demi Vollering. That is the end of the classics. We now head to Spain for La Vuelta.